you know, throw my head in and just, you know, do the decks that came out for English with the cards that are currently out. So this is the Magic World card, or DraMagi as it's called in the anime. It's your typical Magic World deck. Use a ton of spells and proc off of that. G-Evo kind of works the same way with a lot of returning spells to the deck. Sadly, Holy Magic is not in EN, so I can't play it in this deck yet. I mean, I can play it online, but that's not the point. So typically your best G-Evo option is Blade Mage. I feel like most people run that at 4, if anything, because you can still use its abilities, except the G-Evo one, by just calling it, so it's still worth playing, since it is a very strong effect. Every time you play a spell, you can destroy a monster on your opponent's field, and against certain decks, that certainly does put them like in a ringer, especially like against Folktales, Drametals, yada yada yada. So in this instance, I'm just gonna do my usual stuff. The Garcat, the deck Transfer Magic Magidog, sadly is only a 1 call per turn, which I feel like it's dumb, since there are no search cards for your Dragods currently in the Magic World deck. It's not like in Katana World where you could just search out the larger ninja cards, since they're only Deity, Dragon, Tribe / Dragod and nothing else, which I think is kind of just a bit of a bummer. So really, with this I could just end the turn with G-Evo into Blade Mage, and since I'm playing against Drametal, I'm not feeling too insecure, especially even if they have the set spell. I have Abracadabra in my hand, and I'm just going to take Nice One with the set spell, which procs at the beginning of every of my opponent's turn, so you can't abuse this with Wizards, sadly. My opponent's just going to go into their King, the one with the promo, and revive their Drametal from the drop zone, and at this point they're trying to hope to just blow up some of my cards to oppress at least my left. Tip probably with the Argento Lance, since Argento Lance does give some sort of plus ability when oppressing. But of course, since Blade Mage exists and Queen only protects oppressed areas, the protection spell only protects oppressed areas, Blade Mage kind of just hard counters this. Like, they're just going to blow up my set spell, which is kind of a bummer, but they do get 3 gauge, so I understand why they would play it. Now with enough gauge to oppress my field in case they actually kill Magidog, my opponent's just going to go straight into that attack phase. At the beginning of the attack phase, I'm going to use Examinate to check the top 3, I guess, Sephiroth Lecture, which is pretty good. And now I can use Blade Mage's skill to just blow stuff up. So with Argento Lance Destroy, he's going to keep attacking. Sephiroth Lecture will destroy Galio Mace, or Giallo Mace, whichever one it is. Which, even though I will lose 1 soul from the attack, I don't really care, since his cards can no longer attack. They cannot oppress my field, so I'm pretty much safe. I'll just do the usual Magic World shenanigans, draw a bunch of cards, and kind of just feel stuff out. To be honest, DraMagi is really just dependent on the matchup. If there are monsters that just can't be destroyed, if your opponent's playing more item-based decks, you're kind of at more of a disadvantage than if you were to play against just more monster-based decks. Even though Willaria does exist, and that does help a lot against Electro Deity, you're more likely to just kind of... it's more hard for you to win, is what I'm trying to say. Luckily, and also the items aren't really that great. Guard Broom is just like okay-ish. It gives double attack for casting spells, which honestly is just like, that's good enough. Especially since you want to be more aggressive. Speaking of being more aggressive, with Blade Mage's G-Evo ability, I can just put back 6 different spells to smack my opponent for 5 points of damage, which honestly kills most people, but yeah, especially with the impact doing another 5 damage, it is possible to FTK, but you'd have to be like you'd have to be pretty lucky, honestly. It's not really worth considering. I mean, but Blade Mage is still the best G-Evo option. Flare Mage is just kind of there. I mean, quadruple attack isn't like a bad thing. It's just not as, useful as Blade Mage. Or then there's the other one, which is like Ice Mage or whatever. I don't know. Either way, my opponent pretty much loses after that part. So next is against Eldia, which is another monster-based deck that Blade Mage can be helpful against. However, the deck does have counters, which I just think is annoying. But of course, someone blowing up your monster is probably really annoying too. So Transfer Magidog goes off, and after this point, I'm just kind of hoping I draw into Blade Mage, because I really don't want to go into Flare Mage, especially if I'm going first, because it's not going to be very helpful. But I do Buddy Call into Daybreak Work into a Dragon, and just gonna hope for the best at this point. So I'm just gonna Sephiroth Lecture first. Hopefully I can draw into something. But I do get Set Spell, which is helpful on my opponent's turn, so I'll take that for what it is. And another Examinate helps me go. Nope, still don't draw into Blade Mage, sadly, but I am going to just take the Abracadabra, because I know that Ancient World has tons of draw spells, and I know my opponent can just use that spell that's like 1 gauge for 3 life and 3 draw, which I really don't want to deal with. So I'm gonna just take Abracadabra for next turn. So I'm going to attack, and I do draw into Blade Mage off of Daybreak Court's ability, which good enough. So I'm going to G-Evo and end my turn with that. With today being the episode where Ranma and Yuga fight against Yuga's Magic deck, it is most likely that Yuga will lose, and then this will be the end of the Magic World deck. Only 2 games in the anime, so you can tell that Bushiroad really didn't want to put too much emphasis on this deck. They wanted to just get it out of the way, so they'd be like, yeah, Yuga has 3 decks now, so here's the Triple Punisher. So my opponent is going to go into Bond's Glove, which actually just hard counters Blade Mage since it has decent ability, but as an item, so you can't really easily remove it. So my opponent is going to just start milling cards. He is going to mill a Wings and that one that gauges and draws size 0. So he will have, you know, against a heavy burn deck, it is smart to just put Wings in your drop zone, of course. And with that, he's going to go into his Lightning and Thunder Agato, which is the one that's like increases crit and it's really aggressive, so pretty good card to have. And of course he plays the one that prevents rest, so the Telecarrier in my hand is basically worthless, and I can't pop any of his monsters, so I just have to hope for defensive spells to pop up in my hand, and I do have one, thankfully. And so he's just going to attack me with his monsters. So first take the 3 crit, then another 3 crit, and another 3 crit. And on his 4th attack, he's going to attack me with Agato, but I had Buddy Block, so kind of just prevents everything from happening, so good enough for me. With that, I can just kind of hope for the best. I don't need Telecarrier in my hand, but of course against Dragon is not going to help me either, so I'm just going to charge that one, and I'm just going to examine, hope if I can find something better. Do draw into the item, which is pretty good. I don't need a set spell anymore, obviously. So I'm just going to go into the item, which the double attack granting is pretty useful, but I am going to use it in combo with Telecarrier, which is why I did not play it first before I play Sephiroth's Lecture. Since Telecarrier will allow my card to restand, it pretty much gives it the double attack after it restands, which gives it 3 attacks, and I do Sephiroth's Lecture into the Punisher, which pretty much guarantees I can most likely win. So going into the attack phase, I will attack with Blade Mage first, or actually no, I will attack with Guard Broom just to clear the center. And attack with Blade Mage. Blade Mage's ability will go off sending 6 individual spells that are unique back to my deck, dealing 5 damage. Even with Bond's Glove ability to reduce by 1, it's still only 1 damage reduced, so I will do 4 damage. Even though he does take 5, I'm just going to acknowledge it as that. And what's interesting, because Magic World kind of just goes through spells really fast, I do have multiples of spells in my drop zone, so even after I return 6 different spells, I have 5 different spells remaining in my drop zone. And guess what? Telecarrier is not in my drop zone, so when I play it, I will have 6 other ones, so I will stand Blade Mage and just, you know, attack with that, which will, even if he can't stop it, basically, like even with the Wings in his drop zone, he can't stop all the damage I'm about to deal. And at the end, I can just go into final phase, which ensures that my victory is assured. Go into Telecarrier, restand my item, and then he declares GG, and that's really it. So the last game is going to be up against Mystic Knight, the other new Magic World deck that's been shown off in the anime. Of course, you're going to start off with Sync, because, you know, can't play any games without Sync, otherwise you lose. So with that, my opponent is also going to attempt to play Gray, but of course they realize that they're going first, and if you're going first, Gray is worthless, so it's going to put that back in his hand and summon the one that lets you check top card of your deck instead. I mean, honestly, I actually prefer Mystic Knight to DraMagi because it's just more consistent and there's just more stuff I can do. I mean, yeah, it's a straightforward aggressive deck, but it can also just become a straight tank deck, which I do appreciate very much. He is going to, of course, hit me with that 3, 2 from crit and then 1 from the burn, which sucks for me, but what can you really do? So I do run 1 owl just in case I manage to brick hard and just like gauge out all my Blade Mage. It happens, it sucks. So, but I am just going to just go into Blade Mage first, even though I do have a Gargantua Dragon in my hand. I really don't want to risk like him just going off with all his Mystic Knight cards or just preventing me from really doing anything. So I'm just going to start blowing up his cards. Makes enough sense, right? Examinate lets me just get a set spell, which I would prefer at this point over Punisher. So I'm just going to start blowing a Blade Mage. and if Blade Mage dies, most of his defenses goes out the window. I mean, it's not like I'm going to attack his other monsters. And since he doesn't have Night on his field, it is better. Obviously, if he had Night on his field, I would have gone into Gargantuan Dragon first and just tried to kill it before I did anything else. So we're just going to keep on playing spells and blowing up Blade Mage. The set spell counts as a spell activation, so that blows up stuff too. So nice one, that lovely 2 draws, and the set spell blows up the other one. Now my opponent is basically empty. He has no missing Knights on the field, so he can't really like reduce power. Not that it would matter, since I can't really attack monsters that aren't there. Magic is actually a really nice card for the deck. It checks out 3 and gets a spell, and the ability isn't once per turn. Its only downside is that you can only call it with other Deity magic tries, but of course you can play this in any deck if you Dragon Iron anyway. Since my opponent's field is basically empty, I have no real problem just playing my item, going into Guard Broom, and now I actually use it properly. I won't actually. Never mind. I don't have any spells I want to activate anymore, so I'm just going to keep on going. But of course my opponent does Telecare, so I can't really do anything with it anyway. So really, I'm just going to have to end my turn with that. It's kind of a bummer. What can you really do? I don't have a Telecare in my hand. So I do like Gene Tester actually a lot, even though it searches out like just this one item I play. I don't really like to. The 5 life gain is actually really helpful and has come clutch for me in certain games where I'm just going to get smacked by an impact and like, no, I survived, and Blade Mage goes off and blows up one of your cards. Which I do very much appreciate. I mean, it's also an item searcher, which is a nice thing too, but what can you really... Man, that's just whatever. So, see, Mystic Knights has a searcher for its ace cards. Magical Garga does not have that, for whatever reason. I don't understand why. There's also, another complaint I've also heard about Magical Garga is that it's not like a subset of existing archetypes, it's just Deity Dragon Tribe in Magic World, which kind of just makes it a bummer. Yeah, it has access to really strong spells, but at the same time, it's just kind of hindered that there's no previous cards that come before it. Like, if it was one of the, like in ninjas, like, you benefit off ninja arts, which already exist, and there are other ninja cards that also will kind of just plus off of that. But I feel like this time they were just like, well, our only real options are to be, like, your Standing 2 Pillars or your Wizards. And if they were Wizards, they'd be just too strong, since Wizards are already, like, super, just, you know, they skip your turn, all that other stuff. They can also blow you up even faster. So with that, I understand why they didn't make Garga a Wizard, but at the same time, you should have just made Garga a Wizard. Though one thing I cannot deny is that Magic World Garga has access to very strong spells that of course are not Deity Dragon Tribe, so they can't be put into Dragon Iron. You know, the Dragod Iron variants that I've seen, which are pretty funny. But either way, like Examinate or Dust, the Null card is actually really strong, since it's a permanent null. Like, it's not just null and destroy, it's just like for this turn, it's null. So even if its instructions go the first time, maybe destroy it the second time, which I think is pretty cool. And of course, you know, just access to really good spell cards, which Magic World is very good at. And of course, since you do gauge a lot in this deck, you do have access to Abracadabra without really hindering yourself. Like, I know Mystic Knights for themselves cannot really use Abracadabra since their sync is so gauge heavy, and the deck really only has like a few gauge cards, which I'll have to admit is probably the balance. But of course, sync is the only thing you're really spending gauge on, so I guess it's fine. Of course, with this, I'm going to try to attempt to finish off my opponent, but my opponent just plays Valeria, even though, like, what are you top decking that you're going to beat me with? Let's let me beat you. I hate when people do that, but of course I do that too, so yeah, I mean, it's fine. In this regard, I think it's a bummer that I had to use the top card of the deck in order to call this card just from the hand, but I guess that's the balance, since of course if you could just put a card with G-Evo in the soul, when the drop zone like you put with the ninja cards, you'd be able to FTK super easy, which is the balance of it, so of course I understand that. But yeah, it's usually you want to call Blade Mage with G-Evo, because it just makes games a lot faster, because it does not have double attack, and of course, but the heavy burn damage is probably like its best aspect. But yeah, Deity Gargantuan Punisher is also really easy to play. You just play a spell, and if you're playing Magic World, you are going to play a spell at some point during your turn, which makes the condition basically free. Of course, there's no like requisite on like you have to have an open center, yada yada yada, which is how I pretty much beat Max Dragons, which is also why I play Chest Break. Chest Break is always important because Max Dragons exist. So you can really see how this deck really just kind of hinders a lot of monster reliant decks. Since I pretty much spent this entire game blowing up my opponent's cards every time they did anything, I would just play a spell, blow up their cards, keep blowing up their cards, keep blowing up their cards. And since I finally have Tailcare, I can stand my item and Garga and finish off this game. So I've been Everyday Buddy Fighter, and I will see you later.